I'm finally reading ACOTAR. I'm so excited. I should rephrase that. I'm finally giving ACOTAR a proper read. So I feel like before we even get into this reading vlog, I need to kind of give you my history with ACOTAR. So I did read this for the first time in January of 2019, I believe it was. I was very excited. I had just recently finished the Throne of Clowns. I had just recently finished the Throne of Glass series and absolutely loved it. And I wanted to jump into this immediately afterward because it's so well hyped. Everyone loved it. And I only gave it 2 stars. So I didn't care for it. And the idea of getting into books 2 and 3 were just like almost impossible for me to fathom at that time. So I never did continue. Since then, I have heard countless times that book 1 is the weakest in the series and that they only get better as they go, at least for the first trilogy. And everyone's like, you just gotta read Mist and Fury. You just gotta read it. It's so much better, but I couldn't get excited about it. So I did attempt to reread this via audiobook at one point. I don't remember when that was, but I DNF'd it. I think though it was because of the audiobook quality. I just didn't care for the narrator. It didn't resonate with me. Also, I'm just not really good at listening to fantasy on audiobook very often. I usually save my audiobooks for my contemporary or my romances, and I like to read my fantasy books via physical copy. However, I feel like this book has gotten even a new surge of readership here lately, and I have read the entire Throne of Glass series and loved it. I've also read the entire Crescent City series and loved it. And while I didn't necessarily understand some of the things that were going on in that book because of the fact that I haven't read these, I still really enjoyed them. So I do like this author. So I have decided one more time to give this a try. I did recruit a friend to buddy read it with me this time around. It's a friend that I know in real life, but also my bookish friends know her too because she has a very successful and amazing Bookstagram account. We do tend to agree on a lot of things with books. I always really love chatting about books with her because I just feel like we have good conversations. And she also hadn't read this series, so we are giving it a proper try together. So buddy reading books always makes the experience a little bit more fun. So I thought that would be a good way to enhance my experience, but also I'm annotating this book. As you can see at the time of recording this clip, I am about 60% into it, I would say. So I have been tabbing and writing in the margins a little bit, my thoughts and feelings. That has made it really fun and enjoyable. My friend that I'm buddy reading this with is Kimberly, and we are using Storygraph to buddy read this. I have never used this buddy read feature on Storygraph before, but I have to say it's fantastic. I love it. It's so fun to like type in your little comments and then you can react to each other's comments, and it doesn't show you the comments until you've reached that part in the book. So I love it. I'm really enjoying that a lot, and I just have to wonder like how Goodreads never came up with that on their own. But I've just been getting the FOMO so much. So with this book getting such a resurgence lately, it seems like non-readers read this book. I just decided as a reader, I had to be someone who had experienced this series, not just this first book, and I wanted to give it a proper try. I really want to like it. This isn't a hate reread, and I really want to get into books 2 and 3, and then of course the little novella in Silver Flames, which I think follows different characters. I don't really know. But I'm also assuming that a new book in this series will be announced at the beginning of next year, maybe, or at the end of this year. So that's another reason why I really want to get into it. I want to be cool. I don't want the FOMO. I want to be in with the cool crowd. So we're giving it a proper try. And okay, so I'm 60% into it. I'm not loving it, okay, but I am loving my experience of reading it. It's so accessible and easy to understand. I did not expect that. For some reason, Sarah J. Maas worlds in my head are so complicated. This one just seems so easy to understand and accessible. So I'm having no trouble at all understanding what's going on in the world and, you know, like consuming it pretty quickly. Historically, also in my brain, it took me forever to read Sarah J. Maas books, but that's just not been the case with this one. It's very easy to understand. It's not as like flowery as I thought it was going to be, or like as politically charged. Like there is magic and there's creatures, but it just doesn't take as much brain power as I expected. So right now, this is sitting at like a 3.5, maybe even a 4. I know. What? Who is she? But it's mostly because of that enjoyment level, and I am fully expecting to enjoy book 2 even more than this. So we are going to vlog my experience reading this series, and the reread of ACOTAR is going great. And then I'm so excited to get into book 2 soon afterwards. So basically we're reading a book every 2 months, and I'm actually recording this clip on like February 2nd. So it will be a long time before I get through this series and before this vlog goes up, but I don't hate it. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. I feel like I get to sit with the cool kids now. Okay guys, so it has been a while since we talked last, but I have since finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I want to sit down and talk about it with you all. I had so much fun annotating this and buddy reading it with a friend. You can see on my tabs here. I also did quite a bit of like underlining and writing in the margins and stuff like that, so I had a lot of fun with this. I was correct in that buddy reading this would make the experience more enjoyable. It was really fun to watch my friend Kimberly, like her reactions to what we were reading, and also just like seeing her comment on what I had said about what we were reading. So I don't know, I just really loved this a lot, this feature. So that has made this experience more enjoyable. Annotating it has made the experience more enjoyable. I think I mentioned this before, but the writing in this felt so super accessible. I understood what was going on. There were not that many characters, so it was easy to keep up with them. The world building does suffer in this book. I do think that there is a lot more to this world that we will learn about in books 2, 3, 4, 5. So at the moment, it feels like I still don't really know what this world is as far as like the high fae aspect of the world, or like how their hierarchy works and like their politics and even like the magic. It all feels a little fuzzy in my brain, but for the most part, this was just so easy to understand, and I think that made for a good book 1 to kind of get into it. It is told from first person perspective, so I think that is a good excuse for it not having great world building, because our main character is a human and she's entering the Fae world for the first time. So she also doesn't know very much about the world. So it does make sense that we wouldn't know about it either. So I just had so much fun reading this. I decided to give it like a 3.5 star rating, which is bumped up from the 2 that I gave it the first time I read it in 2019. I think it was 2019. But even as I've sat on it, I really think this could even be a 4-star read. I don't know. It just feels like a fun 4-star read. You know what I mean? Oh, I will say this is a spoilery vlog, by the way. I want to feel like I can talk about anything at any time. So, you know, towards the end of this book, there are some scenes where our main character is in prison and she is kind of awaiting these tasks from Amarantha, who is like the big baddie in this book. And while we're waiting for that to pass, Rhysand comes in and has these 2 girls like paint her body and take her away to these parties, and just gets her so drunk that she doesn't even know what's going on, and she just dances, and he doesn't want anyone else to touch her, and it all feels very strange and possessive. And that whole bit was very frustrating to read about, because we don't really know what's going on, and the main character doesn't know what's going on, and Rhysand will say things like, oh, it's just for your own good, just go with it. And it's like, even if that's true, even if he means it and he really does just care about her well-being and he's maybe on the good side this whole time, it just really feels strange and frustrating. I just wanted to know what was going on, and I was really irritated with our main character for just like being kind of cool with it. So I didn't care for those bits too much, but for the most part, this was such a fun read, and I had so much fun annotating, and I can't wait to get into book 2, which I have never read. So I have read this 1.5 times, well, 2.5 times now, and I never did pick up book 2. So we are going to do that now. I did haul this from Pango Books. It arrived in fantastic condition. The seller also included some annotating tabs as well as like a highlighter, and I was like, thank you, that's perfect because I do plan to annotate this. So also this one, super floppy. Anyways, I got this from Pango Books. I've been selling books over there, so I used my credit that I've been earning to buy this, and I also bought books 3 and 4, which I think are arriving on the day that I'm recording this clip, but I'll show those to you later. Yeah, so this is book 2. People love book 2, and so I'm excited to get into it myself. Like I said, very floppy, which I think will make for a fantastic annotating experience because it opens quite wide. I do try not to break my spines too much when I'm annotating, so whenever I was annotating this one, it was like, I was like this. Reading it because I didn't want to break the spine. So I think this one will be a little bit easier despite the fact that it's also a thicker book. Yeah, I don't know much about how this series progresses at this point. I know that Tamlin is not in game, so whatever it is, it's obvious that he's hiding something from Feyre in this book. I just don't know what that is really. And then I think we're going to come to love Rhysand even more. Yes, I have a tail wrapped around my head. And I also know that Nesta's story grows quite a bit in these books, so it was kind of interesting to learn about her in this book as well. So yeah, excited to get into this. I will be doing so very soon. Once I have started this, we will discuss, and I will chat with y'all later. Okay, so it is now March 1st, actually. I have officially started A Court of Mist and Fury. So as you can see, I do have some tabs here. I'm about 140 pages into it. This is a big one. It's 629 pages, and this of course is the one that everyone seems to love the most. This is the one that people were always saying, like, you just got to get through book 1 and then you're gonna love book 2 and 3. So here are my thoughts so far on book 2. I'm loving it. It definitely still is silly in some ways, in the same ways that the first book were for me, but I think it is a lot better, and I am just so excited to see how our main character Feyre and Rhysand's relationship progresses throughout the book. And also, not that I'm excited to see the relationship fall apart between Feyre and Tamlin, but I think I knew going into book 1 that they were not endgame, and so I was disconnecting myself from that relationship and from that character, trying not to get attached. He was fine, but I do think that Rhysand is already, in only the first 140 pages of this book, showing a little bit more like personality and depth to his character. He's just a little bit more exciting to read about. I'm enjoying that, and yeah, I mean, only 140 pages into this book, the relationship between Feyre and Tamlin is disintegrating, and honestly it's allowing me to channel some of my dislike or whatever it may be that keeps me from absolutely loving book 1 or the series as a whole. It's allowing me to kind of channel that into hating him and allowing me to really appreciate Feyre and Rhysand. I have to say, I do like how Feyre wants to be involved in what's going on. She doesn't want to just be left at home, and she doesn't want to just, like, you know, be a wife and wear pretty dresses and plan parties. She wants to be involved, and Rhysand is giving her the opportunities to do that. He's taking her places, he's training her, he's teaching her how to read, and also to, like, keep her mind shields up so people can't read her mind, so people can't get into her head. And Tamlin doesn't think that he wants her to participate in those things. But what I like about Rhysand is that he's giving her the choice. He's like, it's up to you. Do you want to do this? Here's everything you need to know about both scenarios. Which one do you want to pick? And that's why it's becoming easier to fall in love with Rhysand and fall out of love with Tamlin. So, you know, that's really been the extent of this book so far. At the beginning of this book, we learned that Feyre and Tamlin become engaged, I guess, between books 1 and 2, and we're about to see their wedding. But Rhysand drops in at the absolute most opportune moment and saves her from this wedding because she was very much having reservations. She was having some major, almost like PTSD. She was about to say no while she was up there at the altar, and Rhysand saves her. And so now the wedding is like a little bit in limbo. Is it even gonna happen? I don't think it is, just because I know who Endgame is here. But yeah, so those are my thoughts. in the first 140 pages, and I'm really having a good time. So I have switched over to like teal and green and yellow tabs to kind of match the cover of the book, and it's a vibe. I'm loving it. I never even read the synopsis of this book. I just went straight into it. Oh, there's another aspect of this book I wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying, and that is that, you know, Feyre is a painter, and she used to always, when she was looking at something beautiful or ugly, think about what it would be like to paint that and really like appreciate all the colors that it would take to recreate that on canvas. But after the events of the end of book 1, Under the Mountain, with Amarantha, she is struggling to appreciate the color red because Amarantha had red hair, she wore a red dress, and also it's the color of blood, which was shed quite a bit on that night. And also she's struggling with other colors too, like the color of the eyes of the youth that she killed there for Amarantha when she was under the mountain and having to complete the tasks. It's really made her push away from painting a little bit, and painting and color is something of like PTSD for her. And I just thought that was an interesting character development thing. I'm wondering if she will come to reappreciate painting in the future, but in the meantime, she's discovering reading, and Rhysand is helping her learn how to read. He thinks that this is an important skill that she will need to have, and he's not wrong. So I'm excited to see it all play out. All right, that's all I have for this update, and I will chat when we have a little bit more read. It's time for a little update, probably the last update on ACOTAR before I actually finish this book. So I am now 390 pages into it. So you can see I have, I don't know, like 230 pages left, something like that. Whenever I think about it that way, it doesn't sound like so many. What is the percentage though? I don't have my phone. I want to say it's something like 60%. I don't know. I will say there was like a chapter in this book that was really long, and it's where we met Cassian and Azriel, and we also met a female character too. What is her name? It's not Moore, it's the other one, Amren. We got all their backstories at the same time, and I blacked out for that entire chapter. I have no idea whose backstory was what. I didn't retain any of the information. All I know is we met 3 new characters. They're all very close to Rhysand as far as like, you know, the people he keeps closest to him, and they all have very tragic backstories. So that's what I know about them. Also, I think Amren is something of a vampire. I don't know exactly what her race is called, but she eats, or she like drinks blood or something. I don't know. She eats people. So I'm still having a good time. I'm actually enjoying the romance in this more so than I am the story, which I thought it would be the other way around. Sometimes I get kind of like over the romances in books, and this one is doing like a thing that I don't really like in romance. It's just like a little over dramatic, and it does feel like it's happening a little quickly, even though this is a 600 something page book. I don't know that the book is really making me feel like time is passing. It feels like she went from being engaged to Tamlin and being on the altar with him, about to essentially say I do, to now she is like thinking about what it might be like to have an encounter with Rhysand. So you know, that all feels a little fast, even though I'm sure it's not. I'm sure that time has passed. It just doesn't feel like it because I'm consuming the book kind of quickly for me. It does still feel very accessible to me. This world is definitely being expanded upon quite a bit, but I'm still able to like follow along with most of the politics and what's going on and like what they're attempting to accomplish and all that good stuff. So I know that future books follow Nesta, and for some reason I'm really liking her. Whenever we go back to the human realm and we spend time with our main character's family, I kind of enjoy those scenes. And then like Elaine, who is her very sweet sister, kind of like was like, let's kick their asses. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she had like a little bit of a personality shift, and it just went to show that she does have quite a bit of personality. So I'm enjoying those scenes, and I can't wait to honestly like learn more about Nesta, and maybe Elaine will even have some storyline in moving forward. But there's lots of flirtation between Feyre and Rhysand, and I am enjoying that. There's this quote here that says, flirting with him, fighting with him. It was easy, fun. Maybe I deserved both of those things. And I'm just enjoying watching her experience those moments with him. There's also like a little bit of a letter exchange thing going on. There's like a magical notepad that, you know, they can write on and it will either disappear or appear in the other's room so that the other one can read it. I don't know. It's just kind of fun to see those notes being exchanged. I love an epistolary story. So a little bit of note exchange back and forth, you know, flirtatious fun. I am all about it. So I am having a good time. I do think that I'm enjoying this a little bit more so than A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I also like just had so much fun with that experience. This one feels a little bit more serious, and so I think that I can't just say I'm having fun with this silly series because it's not as silly. So I think it's important for this one to actually be good. If that makes any sense at all, it makes sense to me. So I just wanted to give you that little update and we'll chat later. I have an update. I have finished it. 624 pages, and it is absolutely stunning. I love all my tabs. I love the way it looks. I had so much fun reading this. So, you know, I haven't rewatched this vlog up to this point, so I don't remember all that we've talked about, but I will tell you, 5 stars. I loved the romance between Feyre and Rhysand, and I thought that it was very well developed, and just like some of the plot lines that happen in this book kind of make up for the fact that some of the things that I was complaining about in the last clip, which was that it seems like not very much time has passed between Tamlin and Feyre wanting to get it on with Rhysand. In fact, they do talk about that it's been 2 months, but this book also does a good job of talking about what's going on in those 2 months, and it still manages to feel like it's progressing quite a bit in why Feyre is done with Tamlin and doesn't want that life for herself, and why she is finding love with Rhysand. So I did really love it a lot. I loved the romance. I loved the plot as well, and it, like I said about book 1, this book is also very easy to understand and know what's going on. Nothing is too complicated. I was very much waiting for Feyre and Tamlin to have some kind of conflict, for Tamlin to come back into the story, because we didn't see him for a lot of this book. So I kept thinking, shouldn't there be some kind of confrontation with Tamlin? Yes. And it managed to surprise me. I didn't anticipate that the conflict that we would have with Tamlin would manifest in the way that it did. I just, like, my jaw dropped. I was so excited to see him in the room there towards the end when they were confronting the King of Hybern, and his continued betrayal and his continued desperation for Feyre. It just makes you hate him even more. It just makes it so easy to hate him and for you to love Rhysand even more. And then, like, I'll tell you, the last couple chapters of this book absolutely broke my heart. I was so tore up. I was fooled, okay? I thought that they had broke this mating bond between Feyre and Rhysand, but the author did such a good job of fooling me, because it also was meant to fool the King of Hybern and all that group, and Tamlin. And Rhysand is now stepping back, and he's like, she is going to do what she needs to do, and we have this bond where we can communicate with each other, and we will take him down together. And I just thought it was so badass and well done. I don't know, I loved it. There was also one little chapter towards the end from Rhysand's point of view, and I have to say I absolutely loved it. So we are ending this book with Feyre back with Tamlin. Tamlin's under the impression that Feyre wants to be there, and, you know, she's going to take down Tamlin's court from within. And I just think that's an excellent setup for book 3, and I can't wait to see what we get into. So 5 stars. Everyone was right about this book, and I can't wait to get into book 3 and 4 and 5, but I'm just excited to keep plugging through the series. I'm having so much fun. I don't think I would have appreciated this book as much when I read this the first time and didn't care for book 1. I don't think it was the right time. So I think it was a good decision to wait until I was excited to try the series again, to read book 1 from a different point of view, and then to get into book 2 soon afterward. So I think that was a good choice. I am very excited about the series, and we'll talk once I have started Wings and Ruin. All right, so it is towards the end of April, and it is now time to get into ACOTAR, A Court of Wings and Ruin. So this is the 3rd book, of course, in the ACOTAR series. And with the way book 2 ended, I'm just so excited to get into this one and see what's going to happen. And again, I have not read the synopsis on the back here, but I do know that this one is more centered around the war and the politics of this world. So we have established the romance between Rhys and Feyre, but Feyre is now back in the Spring Court with Tamlin, and she's playing a part. She's pretending to love him still so that she can basically infiltrate. I'm sure she'll use her connection to Rhysand in order to like give him information. So this is a 699 page book. It's very thick, very floppy. I love it. And I have been annotating these books, as you know, so I have picked out a set of colors here. I like to do 4 different colors, and the colors don't mean anything. I just like the way it looks in my book. So these are the colors I've gone with for this book, and I'm just so excited. I love the bright pink. I can't wait to know what this one's all about. And I'm also excited to see Feyre's family a little bit. So there's Nesta and Elaine, and I think that their part in the story is unfolding nicely in a way that makes me interested in them. And I know that Nesta has her own book, of course, so that one's even bigger than this one. And I can't wait to get into that one also. But I am enjoying seeing the sisters kind of play more of a role with every book and see their personalities come out, and I know that they have stories to tell as well. So we're gonna start getting into A Court of Wings and Ruin now. I'm still buddy reading with Kimberly, by the way, and we're still using Storygraph. It's awesome. I love it. But yeah, all right, let's get into this and we will chat very soon. Okay, so today is actually a Friday, but I am taking the day off work today because I worked on Sunday of last week. So I just had a lot of like flex time built up. So I've decided to use that time for reading ACOTAR. So I have already started this, but I'm hoping to make an even bigger chunk today. I'm on page 146, and so far I'm loving being back in this world and with these characters. This is making me really miss like sprawling fantasy books. You know, Throne of Glass was like a 9-book series. Crescent City was 3 books so far, but they're all so big that it is a sprawling series. But I just feel like long series used to be a thing, and now they're not so much anymore. People just want that like instant gratification. So duologies are a really big thing. I feel like trilogies have even fallen out of favor lately, and now everything's a companion series versus like an actual sequential series, if that makes sense. So I am liking being in this world that is already established. I already know it and the characters, so I'm already in love with all of them, and now we're gonna get into all of their politics and learn how they're gonna figure out all this war situation stuff. So so far so good. I actually thought most of this book was gonna take place in the Spring Court for some reason, just because of the way book 2 ended. We learned that Feyre is gonna go back to the Spring Court and pretend to still be in love with him and want to make things work with him, and pretend that Rhysand kidnapped her so that she can get intel and basically destroy the Spring Court from within before going back to the Night Court. And that didn't really happen. So we're only less than 150 pages in, and Feyre is now back home with Rhysand and Cassian and Azriel and all of them, and Lucien has come with her. So I really liked the way that Feyre kind of dismantled the Spring Court a little bit. It was very cunning and clever, and I liked the reveals and stuff, because we as an audience don't really know until it happens, until the aftermath. So I like the way that Sarah J. Maas does all that. So now that Feyre is back with Rhysand, I don't exactly know how the plot is going to go down. I'm excited to find out. I know that much, and I'm excited to see what happens with Lucien, because he decided to join Feyre at the Night Court so that he could basically, you know, at least see Elaine, because he ended up mating with her towards the end of book 2, which is unrequited. Elaine's not into it, as of right now anyways. So, you know, I'm sure his presence there will raise some hairs, and people will be wondering, like, why is he here? Is he spying? Is he going to go back to Tamlin with secrets just like Feyre did? So I'm not sure there's a lot of trust there for Lucien, but I'm excited to see how his story plays out as well. I just can't wait to keep plugging through. So I am buddy reading this with Kimberly. She hasn't started yet, I don't think. While if I didn't have today as a reading day, it would take me probably 2 or 3 weeks to finish this book. I am hoping to get a little dent in here. I will just go ahead and say I'm hoping to read 200 pages today. I don't even know if that's possible. I have like 8 hours until my daughter gets home from school, and then another hour before my husband gets home from work. So I'm sure 200 pages in 8 hours seems super easy to some people, but I'm sure that I will have to take breaks, and I might even go do some cleaning today while my family's out of the house. So, all right, let's get into reading, and we'll check back in soon. All right, so I'm gonna get one of those ambiance things going on my YouTube. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm sure there are some Court of Thorns and Roses ambiances on here. We were watching Wizards of Waverly Place this morning, by the way. All right, let's go to YouTube and let's just search for a Court of Thorns and Roses ambiance. Reading in the Night Court Library or just the Night Court. It's only an hour long. I am kind of hoping to read until 10. That would be like an hour and 40 minutes or so. Here's a 3-hour one. Let's do this one. I did just read where Feyre is back into the Night Court. So I'm gonna turn the volume down and let's get to reading. Hey guys, so it is time for me to sit down and talk to you about A Court of Wings and Ruin. I'm about 69% into this, 483 pages, so just over 200 pages left. This is the first time I've really had a chance to sit down and talk with you all about how this is going. It's just been so crazy around here lately. We've been very busy, and I do think that I picked this book up at the wrong time because I am struggling to really know what's going on. Like, there's so many characters and there's lots of politics and they're kind of gearing up for war or whatever, and Feyre, our main character, will figure stuff out, and then I'm like, wait, what I don't know I need someone to tell me. So I am really enjoying it, but I don't think this is going to be the 5-star that Mist and Fury was. So I've just been a little distracted lately, and I think that's affecting my enjoyment of this, or at least my ability to like kind of really understand what's going on. However, all that being said, I am enjoying it. Now, though, things should really be dying down for me in my personal life, so I should be able to really focus on the last 200 pages of this, which is good. And like I said, so far so good. I just wish I really was picking up on all the little nuances and I was following along with who all the characters are, because there's just so many of them and I'm struggling to remember who is related to who and why this matters and what court they belong to and all that good stuff. But I am really enjoying it. Like I said, I do love Feyre and Rhysand. Oh, I wanted to mention, I have 2 death predictions at this point. So I have no idea how this ends. I have not heard who dies in this series or anything like that. Maybe no one does. I really don't know. But I'm going to predict Lucien. They did kind of send him off on this other quest while they were doing some other thing. And like I said, don't really know what he's doing. But for some reason, I'm just convinced he's going to die, because like he left his home court to come be with Feyre and maybe pursue Elaine, who he mated with. And I think he's either going to die for Elaine or for Feyre. I do think they'll reunite with him before he dies, and then it will be like right then and there. I don't know. That's my prediction. And then I'm also kind of wondering if Tamlin will also die. Not that anyone cares, because he's such a douche, but I'm wondering if he will have like one selfless act at the end that causes him to die for Feyre and maybe Rhysand as well, or maybe just the war effort in general. I don't know. Those are my 2 big death predictions. And I also had never heard of Mor or Amren prior to this series before getting into it, so I'm wondering if one of them will die as well. I don't know. Either way, 200 pages left. The second half of a Sarah J. Maas book always tends to be crazy action-packed. And I will say I was quite bored for the beginning of this book, like the first half or so. And it did pick up a little bit, but there have been lots of just like meetings and like Fae arguing with each other over what I would consider pretty petty stuff. So for the most part, I'm like, all right, can we get on with it a little bit? So I am hopeful that the last 200 pages here will be action-packed. And, you know, I wouldn't mind if my jaw dropped a little bit here and there. So, like I said, I don't think this is going to be the full 5 stars, but I am enjoying it, and I'm having so much fun with this series. I also haven't updated our story graph buddy read in a while that Kimberly and I have. And I don't know if she has started yet. I know she's planning to start very soon. I am kind of enjoying seeing Nesta and Cassian's like back and forth and their flirtations. I do think that they end up being the couple in Silver Flames. Like I said, I could be wrong. I really don't know much about this series. Whenever I see stuff pop up, like in Instagram or whatever, I've seen the characters' names pop up enough that I'm like, oh, that's from A Court of Thorns and Roses or whatever. But, you know, I don't know who ends up with who or who dies or whatever. I don't know all that kind of in-game stuff. So I'm pretty sure Silver Flames is Nesta and Cassian's story after, I would assume, the events in this book. So I'm wondering what will happen in this book to kind of make them break off. After the war is presumably done in this book, what more story will there be to tell? So yeah, and I know there's a bridge book in between the series and Silver Flames as well that we will read together. But that's where I'm at currently, 200 pages left. I do have a big reading day on this day that I am filming this clip. So I'm hoping to read a pretty good chunk of this. 150 pages is kind of my goal, but I'm also, it's fine if I don't read that many pages. So I'm on page 483 right now, and we will see how many pages I am able to get through today. So let's go. Okay, so it has been a few days since we talked last. I did read quite a lot of pages on that day that I had a big reading day, but that was like a week ago, I think, at this point. So I did finish A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I really enjoyed this a lot. It definitely did pick up quite a bit in the second half, like all Sarah J. Maas books do. I'm not saying that the first half of this book is not necessary, but it can be a little bit of a trudge sometimes when it comes to her books, that is to say. She's very good at building the tension, getting you familiar with the characters, giving you all of the world political information that you need before getting into the action. It just can be a lot sometimes, and there were a lot of characters in this book, and I did struggle to keep up with who was what and the relations and all that great stuff. But my 2 death predictions, actually I think I had 3 at one point, and we'll talk about that too. My 2 death predictions were Lucien and Tamlin, and neither of them died. My third one was her father, the girl's father, Nesta, Elaine, and Feyre, the main character. I don't know why I struggled to come up with her name. Their father does make an appearance at some point during the battle of this book with like a human army, and apparently that's what he's been doing this whole time, is like getting some troops together to help these girls. While all that was really cute and symbolic and all that, the minute he showed up, I was like, oh, he's dead. And sure enough, he died pretty quickly after he showed up. He does step in to try and kind of defend the girls, and he instantly gets his neck snapped. So rip to Feyre's dad, but also not terribly shocking. There was also a moment towards the end where Tamlin kind of steps in, and he's trying to help the cause of, you know, like Rhysand and all them. And even though he has this like kind of redemption arc, I still don't really like him that much, you know? There was also a brief moment where Rhys died, and even though I think I knew that he wasn't going to stay dead, it still was like really heartbreaking, and I definitely had like a no moment. But based on other series that I've read before, I knew that Rhysand was not going to stay dead. In fact, I do think that eventually there will be a child between him and Feyre. Now, whether or not we get to see that in any of the books, I have no idea. But so there is a moment where Feyre is kind of talking about Tamlin. I really liked this quote, so I wanted to share it. There was not enough time in life to waste it on hatred, on feeling it and putting it into the world. And girl, preached. I need that sewn on a pillow in my living room. I am going to settle on a 4.5-star rating for this. It definitely was not near as captivating for me as A Court of Mist and Fury, which I absolutely loved, but I did love it a lot, and you know, I had a good time with it. So I am having so much fun reading these books still. I just wanted to hold them all up together. So this is A Court of, what's it called? Thorns and Roses right here, Mist and Fury in the middle, and then Wings and Ruin on this side, right here. Anyway, that's them all tabbed up, looking good. And I do have a little Sarah J. Maas shelf back here that I have placed them on. So here's my little Sarah J. Maas shelf. I have all of my Throne of Glass books here with the Nerdy Ink, I think, dust jackets on them. Here's my Crescent Moon series, and then here's where I'm stacking all of the ACOTAR books whenever I finish them. So that does mean that it is time to get into A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is a little novella that I believe is a bridge book between the original trilogy and whatever comes after this. Court of Silver Flames is the only other book that comes after this, and I believe that's Nesta's story, and I don't know what's happening in the world during Nesta's book, but I believe this is the bridge book between the two like arcs of the series, I guess. I've heard people say that this is a filler book. I know that this is the lowest rated of the books. I've also heard that it might be like Christmassy or like have a holiday feel to it. I've heard people complain that there's like 2 pages worth of one of the characters complaining about their menstrual cycle. So I've heard mostly silly negative things about this, but I think if I set my expectations accordingly, maybe I can just have a good time with this. So it says that Feyre and Rhysand and everyone are still rebuilding the Night Court after the war, but the winter solstice is approaching, and with it, joy of a hard-earned reprieve. Okay, it does say that this is Feyre's first winter solstice as the High Lady, and she just finds herself being swept up into the people of the court and like how they're struggling to basically like cope after the war. It does say it bridges the events of A Court of Wings and Ruin with the later books in the series, and it explores the long-lasting effects of a devastating war and the fierce love between friends. So it is a short book in the standards of the Court of Thorns and Roses series. It is 229 pages. I think I can get through this pretty quick just because I get extra time off of work during the summer. So once I have picked this up and started reading, we will chat. Okay, hello friends. Welcome to an update. It is June something, and I am about to start A Court of Frost and Starlight. A Court of Silver Flames is the only book that's currently released after this one, and I would assume there's more to come, even though it's been a while since that book came out, it seems like anyway. I'm fully expecting an announcement to be made soon about more books in this series. Like I said, keeping the expectations low, and I am buddy reading with Kimberly still. We're having so much fun over on Storygraph and just like chatting with each other and also like trading memes and stuff. Every once in a while we'll trade like an ACOTAR themed meme, and it's just so fun that we are on the inside now, so we can do that with each other and trade memes. So I have my book and my little what do you call these, tabs ready to go. I'm just going to use these 4 blue and yellow ones here in the middle and that's going to be my annotation tabs. Okay, so it is time to update you. I have finished A Court of Frost and Starlight. With this being such a quick book, I was able to finish it relatively quickly. Didn't get a lot of time to tell you my thoughts like in the middle of the book. So here are my tabs. There's not very many. It's only a 229 page book. This one is the lowest rated of all of the books. I think it's like a 3.73, which for an ACOTAR sequel is pretty low. But I kind of understand why. It feels like it's long for a novella, but also absolutely nothing happens. So it's very much like a slice of life for these characters after the events of book 3. And I know it's supposed to kind of bridge whatever comes next in book 5. So there is a little bit of them celebrating the winter solstice in this book. And I don't know, I guess I just thought it would be a little bit more happy and uplifting. Even though they just got out of war and their land is very much like still recovering from all of that, I just thought it would be a little bit more fun and warm and have like, I don't know, a little bit of a Christmassy feel to it, but it was very much still a little bit on the bleak side. Characters still going through a lot of stuff, lots of tension between Nesta and the characters, and Feyre, our main character, is kind of also like trying to cope with the fact that she has so much, her family has so much now, and then like the rest of the people in the land don't. So it is interesting. There were some cute moments. I just wanted it to be a little bit warmer. I think I'm settling on a 3.5 star rating for this, so it is my least favorite of the 4 that I've read so far, but I don't hate that it exists, and it was kind of fun to just have like a shorter novel of what's going on with these characters after book 3. So Kimberly and I read this at pretty much the exact same time. I do need to update our Storygraph a little bit, but I had so much fun reading this with her, watching her comments pop up and sending her mine as well. So this has made me very excited for book 5. It's probably going to be a while before we get into book 5, so I'm recording this clip right in the middle of June, and it will probably be closer to the end of July or August before we get into book 5. But I have hauled it, I have it ready to go. I just feel like I don't have much to say about this because it was very slice of life. One thing that is funny is that I was just talking about how I know that Feyre ends up with a child at some point based on some other things that I've read, and that was one of her gifts to Rhysand for the solstice, was the promise of a child in the future. They want to try for one, basically, which I think for Faye is a little bit harder, takes a little bit longer, could take hundreds of years, they said. But they got to working on it immediately after deciding that, and yeah, it was fine. Like I said, I just don't feel like there's much to say about it. I am really intrigued by Cassian and Nesta, so I'm excited to see what their story will be in book 5. Once I start to sit down and read that book, we will chat about it. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Frost and Starlight. Okay guys, it is now finally time to get into A Court of Silver Flames. This is the last book that's currently published in this series, and once I finish this book, I will be all caught up with everyone else. And I think since we talked last, Sarah J. Maas did kind of confirm that a future book will be coming out in the series. Now, you know, I don't know how this book ends, so I don't know if it will wrap everything up for this couple or if the next book will be a continuation of Nesta and Cassian's story, or maybe it'll follow Asriel and Elaine. I have no idea, but I'm excited nonetheless that that was sort of confirmed. I was kind of hoping we would actually get an actual book announcement during this video, but that didn't happen. Either way, it is now time for Silver Flames. So this is Nesta and Cassian's story. Nesta, of course, is the sister of Feyre, and Cassian is one of Rhysand's inner circle or something. You know, I don't know all the language, sorry. This is a very big book. It is the largest book in the series so far, and it's 750 pages, and I have to wonder why, because a lot of the politics I would have assumed from the first 3 books were kind of wrapped up. I mean, there are definitely some loose ends and stuff like that, but, you know, we had the war and that concluded in the original trilogy. And now we're kind of following Nesta and Cassian, especially while Nesta is dealing with some of the aftermath of the war. It does say here, Nesta has always been prickly, proud, swift to anger, and slow to forgive, and since the war, and being made High Fae against her will, she struggled to forget the horrors she endured and find a place for herself within the strange and deadly Night Court. So, of course, we know that Cassian manages to press all of her buttons and anger her, but he also ignites a different kind of fire in her. It does say that there is threat of war casting its shadow over them once again, so I guess there is a chance for more war. And Nesta and Cassian must battle monsters from within and without as they search for acceptance and healing in each other's arms. So I have to wonder, who are these monsters from within? Who's going to betray them? And obviously they're going to find romance with each other as well. So I have heard that this one is very heavy on the romance and very steamy. And as of right now, I'm not sure, you know, I haven't really gotten to those parts yet. I'm not really sure how I'm going to feel about that. Because while I do feel like I'm ready for some of the politics to wrap up and for these characters to just find happiness, I also don't want 750 pages of just romance. So we'll see what these characters get into. I have started, I'm on page 155, and I have started annotating as well. I think Kimberly is going to start this book this week, so I'm not super far ahead of her or anything like that. The first 150 pages, I will say, have just been Nesta kind of being grumpy and brooding and being difficult and refusing to eat and participate, and it's just very annoying. It's getting old. It got old really quick. And everyone's like walking on eggshells around her in order to try and not anger her. And I just am over it. I did read a part where Cassian kind of yelled at her, and I really thought that was necessary. And it was nice to see someone kind of put her in her place a little bit and tell her to just shut the heck up. So after 150 pages, I've already read a chapter where Nesta's attitude seems to be taking a little bit of a turn. Cassian found kind of a weakness and went for that, and is now kind of trying to give her what she needs, the space that she needs. And they're training together and consequently learning about each other, spending some quality time together. And I just read a scene where Nesta helped someone in the library who needed help, so that was kind of nice, like friendship element that was added in. Either way, I am glad that after 150 pages, hopefully Nesta's gonna start really coming around and being less of a grumpus all the time, because who wants to read that for 750 pages? So excited to get more into this. We will chat as I do so. All right, it is the next weekend. It's time for a little update on A Court of Silver Flames. It's been a whole week since we did an update, but I've only read 140 pages or so. I'm moving super slowly in this book, partly because personal life is just starting to really pick up and get busy. I've gone back to a 5-day-a-week schedule at work instead of 4 days that we have in the summer, and it's just starting to pick up as far as like how busy we are while at work. And you know, when I come home, I relax and don't really want to get into the fantasy books. And also just like our daughter's going back to school, she's starting to pick up with school activities and stuff. It's just starting to get a little busy. So that's partly why, but also I just don't think I'm loving this. There is like a little bit of a political plot line I think I mentioned, and it involves like having to find these magical objects, which I think could be a really fun plot line if I even understand what's going on, because that's just been true for the past like 2 books in this series, is I don't really understand the politics. But for this to be only a romance, it's very long. I will say our main character Nesta has been very annoying to read from, but I did read a review that was like, people hate Nesta, but forget that she's going through all of this grief and she's dealing with it in her own way. And I do like how it's been a slow process for her to kind of like figure it all out. But I will say, because we're reading from her perspective, it is like, oh, okay, come on, girl, like, let's go. It's just not fun to read from. So there's that. I do like Cassian, his chapters, like when we're reading from his perspective, I do like that a little bit more than reading from Nesta's chapters. But I will say there have been a couple of like friendship moments for Nesta. She's found a couple of friends. One of them is a store owner, Emery. The other one is like a priestess in the library. So I've kind of enjoyed watching Nesta make those friendships. And, you know, a good female friendship is always good. And Nesta has found those friendships organically. No one has really like forced her into them or anything like that. Okay, now I'm going to talk about like the smut in this book. And there's kind of a lot of it. So I'm only 300 pages into this, less than halfway. These 2 characters have not really expressed, at least in this book, there is a little bit of history between the 2 of them, but they have not really expressed any like emotional interest in each other. And there have already been 3 very explicit and graphic sex scenes for the 2 of them, and it feels a little much to me. It feels like this book exists for these scenes. It kind of feels like Sarah J. Maas wanted to write this kind of explicit book, but also have a little bit of politics thrown in so that it had something to do with the storyline. So I'm not loving that. One of them kind of happened on accident, I guess you could say. Not really accident, but just like neither of them planned it. The other one, Cassian, had to like make up for a bad thing that he did the first time around. And then the third one was very much like Cassian was feeling kind of down and stressed and tired, so Nesta decided she was going to make him feel better, something like that. And I don't know, I think I'm over it. I don't get the same thing out of explicit scenes that some people seem to, so I wish they were a little bit less explicit or maybe a little bit less frequent, because like I said, we're less than halfway and we've already had 3 pretty graphically detailed scenes, and I don't know. You know, I don't know. I think Kimberly has started reading as well, so I'm excited to hear how she's feeling so far. And like I said, I've been moving pretty slow, so by the time I have a chance to update you again, which will probably be next weekend, we'll see how far I've made it into this. So I try to read about 40 pages per day, and that's not very much, but I do read a little bit in the mornings before work, and then a little bit on my lunch break at work, and then the rest of the day is mostly just dedicated to family time. So I don't really read it very fast, and it is a very thick book, so we'll probably be here for a little while reading this together. But that's how I'm feeling so far. I have been enjoying annotating and kind of writing in the lines here. I would really love to see Cassian and Nessa develop more of an emotional connection before engaging in more activities, I think is where I'm at. So all right, that's all I have for now, guys. Has anybody else been watching my hair get progressively longer the more we do this video? I'm trying to let it grow long, and I feel like it's actually getting pretty long now. I'm on page 440. Life continues to be very busy. I am starting to get motivated, though, to get through this a little bit more. I wouldn't say faster, but I know I mentioned that I try to read close to 40 pages a day in this, but I'm really getting closer to like 30 pages a day. And I also am working on a little ebook. Like whenever I'm getting ready for bed at night, I do an ebook book rather than this. But yeah, anyways, it's taking me forever. I wanted to mention, because I never mentioned it earlier, Feyre's pregnant, which is kind of exciting. It feels very high stakes. It feels very like Twilight, or Breaking Dawn rather, because this baby could potentially kill her in the same way that Bella's baby could potentially kill her. And I don't know if we'll see the birth in this book or not, or if it will like extend more into the next book, but I do feel like it makes the stakes feel higher, and the way that they're going after these like objects makes it feel like it actually really is important. I don't know. There was kind of a badass scene I read recently where Nesta puts on the mask, which is one of the objects, and is able to like command an army of the dead. So that was kind of cool. I liked that whole scene. It was interesting. And the whole finding the objects so that you can become the master of death feels like the Deathly Hallows, right? Did I mention that already? It feels like the Deathly Hallows. It feels very Twilight. It feels very Harry Potter. And it's just kind of funny to think of all that when it's also very steamy. So I could do without all the steamy scenes. There have been a few more since the last time we talked as well. And for only like the first half of the book, for there to be like 5 or more steamy scenes, a bit much in my opinion, especially when these two can't even confess that they love each other. So I'm old. I'm a mom. I would love to see people express their love for each other before banging it out. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying here. Sarah J. Maas is a decent writer, and she's good at politics and war and all that. And, like, I'm not even sure what all is going on. It's so involved. But I think she cheapens her writing a little bit by throwing so many very explicit scenes in there. It would be okay with me if they faded to black a little bit more or were a little bit less frequent. So I'm going to try not to harp on that too much, because I know it's getting kind of annoying. As annoying as the scenes are in the book, the frequency of them, it's also annoying that I complain about them every time. So I'm sorry. I can't believe we're getting so close to the end of me finishing this series. I only have 310 pages left in this entire series. And even if this one doesn't end up being my favorite book, I will 100% want to read whatever she releases next in this series. So I am kind of hoping for a character shift though, like a POV shift, because I know I mentioned that I was curious about Nesta and Cassian. They are very interesting characters, but this is a long book and I'm ready to move on already. So I am very much assuming they will express their love for each other at some point, and I think that could be very satisfying. So I'm excited to see that play out, and we'll keep you posted. I'll update y'all very soon. Hello. Some time has passed, a considerable amount of time even, and I do have a little bit of an update on A Court of Silver Flames. I still have 70 pages left. I am just so ready to be done, honestly. So I wish I had rewatched this vlog up to this point so I would know what we have talked about with this book. I know I've complained a little bit about the frequency of steamy scenes, but also how broody Nesta is to read from, and how I wish they would just express their love for each other, maybe the lack of politics or action. But I can say that there is quite a bit of politics and action in this book, and also a lot of romance type stuff. So it is so long. It is way too long in my opinion. I wish this book was a lot shorter, by at least 200 pages. I'm just so ready to be done with it. I don't think it's good enough for me to have to sit here for 750 pages to read it. It's not bad. And I am reading it slower than what I would like because of personal life, so it feels like it's dragging on even more. I just am so ready to be done, and I think that's really affecting how I'm feeling about it. So I still have 70 pages, like I said. They have expressed that they loved each other, which was great, but then Nesta had a moment where I guess they did kind of mate, but Nesta didn't want to admit that that had happened because she felt like she was losing her humanity. And I kind of get where she's coming from. Also, like, what's the point of mating if you really love each other? Like, to me, it's a little bit more special if you chose that person, if you love that person, rather than like fate determining that for you. So I don't think I'm a fated mates romance trope kind of girl, but I totally got why Nesta was so reluctant to kind of admit that they were mated and to let that autonomy almost be taken away from her. So I did appreciate that. Nesta is in the middle of the blood rite, which I don't really understand everything that's going on. I have been reading some recaps while reading this book in order to make sure I didn't miss anything because it's so much stuff. But like I said, I don't hate it. I don't even want to tell you the rating that is going through my mind at the moment until I have finished it. I have just a few more days of reading this and I'll finally be done. Like I said, I will definitely read book 6, and I'm curious to see how this this one ends and wondering if that will give me any indication of what will come in book 6 or what the topic of book 6 will at least be. Who will the characters be? These are the questions that I have. So getting so close to the end, and it has taken me so long to get here that I'm so ready. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm hoping it's not a train. Alright guys, I have finished it! Yay! I can't even tell you how happy I am that I finally finished this book. Not only because I was kind of ready to move on to the next thing, but it was so long that this does feel like an accomplishment. I only finished 2 books in the month of August because this one was taking me so long. So it's now September like 6th or something like that. I finally finished a book for the first time in like a month. This just took up so much of my brain power. I want to make one thing clear, and that is that I did not dislike this book. I did like it. I think I will give it 4 stars actually. The ending was good enough that I do want to give it a 4 star. It was a little too long and I do feel like 4 is a little generous, but I really appreciate the character study of Nesta in this, the sort of familial aspects of it, the growth that Nesta went through. She found some friendships in this book and she really connected with the members of her family and Cassian, of course. So I do really appreciate all of the things that this book did. I do think it could have been a lot shorter, and I, like I said, did not really care for the frequency of those scenes. And I do think that like the length could have been improved if some of those scenes were less detailed. And even like once Nesta and Cassian sort of expressed their feelings for each other, which I appreciated, it still felt like they had more of a sexual connection than an emotional one, which it's not for me. But I'm glad that they found each other and they're happy and all that good stuff. I will say that like the whole scene with Nesta and Brylan, I think is her name, who is basically, it's like the baddie of this book. The scene where they like defeat her was very fast. It was like 1 or 2 pages at most. So all of this book, okay, all of the build up to that to only be 1 or 2 pages was a little wild to me, but also I was just like, I'm glad we didn't have to sit through a whole lot of battle or anything. And then we cut to the scene where Feyre was having her baby, and I think they were saying she was a little early. I don't know, but then later on they said that the baby was full term, so I still don't really know. But I did like that part. Whenever I'm watching any kind of show or movie, I always like the scenes where women go into labor. I just think that because I myself am a mom and I have been through that, it's a very emotional experience, and that's if everything goes well, you know? So obviously there was a lot at stake for Feyre. Her baby had wings, and apparently it's never happened before that a mother survived the birth of a baby with wings. And then apparently Feyre and Rhysand had made some kind of pact prior to this where if one of them dies, the other will die, because they are just gonna leave the world together when their time comes, which is so like disgustingly romantic that it's like, okay guys, really? Was this the best? Did we think this through? Of course, at that time they did not have a child counting on them, but now they do. So it was a little bit dramatic. It didn't all go smoothly for Feyre, of course, but I did really like the way it went down, and it was also pretty quick, I would say. So Nesta kind of ended up saving everybody, which I liked that added to it as well. So I think because I liked the way Nesta used her power and made some sacrifices towards the end, kind of made me appreciate this book a little bit more, and I just need to look past the things that I didn't like about it, because at the end of the day they didn't really take away from the character growth and just like the politics and all that. So 4 stars, a little bit reluctant on the 4 stars, but I did like it. I think I'm gonna rank these really quick actually. I have them all sitting here. Favorite, obviously, Mist and Fury. Second favorite has to be Wings and Ruin. Third favorite, I think I would put book 1 just for how ridiculous it was. And then I think I would put this one at the second to bottom, and then this one at the bottom. What do you think? How did I do? How do you agree with this lineup right here? So here are all of my tabs, and I'm just so proud of myself for finishing this entire series this year. I did get to thinking about this though. How much do we want to bet that they're going to release the 6th book in hardcover and they're not going to match this set at all? I don't know how I'll handle that situation. Now I really am wondering what book 6 will be about. And oh, I wanted to say one other thing. It seemed like there were moments where Asriel was kind of flirty with Gwen, and now I'm wondering, are they going to be a thing? Or is it going to be Asriel and Elaine? And will our 6th book follow Elaine and Asriel? That's kind of what I always assumed. I'm just very curious what's going to happen with that. And oh, there was a line sort of towards the end of this book where Cassian's like basically telling us the loose ends that are not yet tied up, and I thought that was interesting. So they'd have to figure out what to do with the entire dead trove, which are the 3 objects that they collected in this book, which felt very Deathly Hallows, if I'm being honest. How Nesta had summoned it, despite the spells Hellion had placed on the other 2, the fact that she'd stopped time with the harp, he doesn't understand how she did that, and that she seemed to have some sort of connection or understanding with the mother, who is, I guess, like kind of like the god. They'll deal with all that later, including the remaining queens, Koche, who is a character in this book, and a still looming war. So those are the loose ends that were not yet wrapped up in this one, and I really appreciated Cassian sort of listing off those things so we could realize that this series was not necessarily finished. So buddy reading these books has been such a fun experience to do with my friend Kimberly. I love Kimberly, like I've mentioned before, and I'm sure if she's even watching this video, she's the only one watching this video, especially like, you know, the full length of it, because I know this is a long one. So like I said, I feel like I was a little bit negative about this book for the majority of the times that I came on here and talked about it, but at the end of the day, I did really like it. So I'm sorry for kind of harping on the negatives. I did enjoy it. All right, now it's time to hold all of these up for a thumbnail. Am I gonna do it right here? Let's see. Is this cool? Will people click on this? Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me while I read these books, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.